As I got to the top of the stairs, I stopped to catch my breath. Then, I made a blue tally mark on my whiteboard. 400 flights of stairs down, 650 to go. Why was I climbing 1,050 flights of stairs? Or more accurately, why was I climbing my own stairs 1,050 times? The short answer? Because sometimes this is what changing the world looks like. I climbed my stairs 1,050 times in May 2020 to raise money for Save One Life. May 2020 was the 3-year anniversary of my successful climb of Mount Everest. The fundraising challenge was simple. We wanted to raise $29,032, the same number of dollars as the height of Mount Everest in feet. Then, I would climb the equivalent height using my stairs at home. We raised $10,500. And since my stairs are about 10 feet high, that meant I had to climb them 1,050 times. After finishing stair climb number 400, I started stair climb number 401. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Obviously, climbing my staircase 1,000 times was a lot less exciting than climbing Mount Everest. But the overall goal was the same, to raise money that would then be used to help my fellow hemophiliacs. Only this time, the circumstances were entirely different, because this time, I would be deciding what to do with the money in my role as executive director of Save One Life. But first, let me tell you how that happened. 2018 was an incredible year for me. I climbed Mount Vinson to complete the 7 summits, raising over $100,000 in the process. I came home to my wife, Jessica. We got an amazing new puppy, Oslo, and I was still working for a company called Gut Monkey, where I organized outdoor excursions for people with chronic illnesses, an experience that changed my life. I was also on the board for Save One Life. But climbing the 7 summits changed me too. I had become a role model within the hemophilia community, and now it was time to become a leader. Or so I thought. Now, in 2025, I have a different perspective. When I became the executive director of Save One Life at 33, my goal was simple. I even said it in a press release. I wanted to reduce the disparity in care so that someone with hemophilia in Nepal could climb Everest the way that I could. Maybe I was cocky, or maybe I was just confident. After all, I had just completed something that people said was impossible. Mountain climbing taught me that hard work can get you through a hard time. So did baseball. So did having a bleeding disorder. I thought that being executive director would work the same way. Boy, was I wrong. I was still in the process of earning my master's degree in global health. I had never managed something this big. I had never supervised a staff. I had never been responsible for people's livelihoods. I hoped that all my past challenges had prepared me for what was to come, but this was uncharted territory. My name is Chris Bombardier, and I'm a mountaineer with hemophilia. From 2011 to 2018, I successfully climbed the 7 summits, the tallest mountain on each of the 7 continents. Since then, I've become the executive director of Save One Life. As a role model and a leader in the global hemophilia community, I've learned a lot since I climbed the 7 summits. It caused me to rethink my ideas about leadership and success, and to re-examine myself in the process. This is the final summit season 4, Reevaluating Success. This week, my guests and I discuss my 5 years as the executive director of Save One Life. What does it mean to be a leader? How do you even define a leader? And if you don't meet that definition, what then?
This next segment is brought to you by Genentech. There's a new short film out that's dedicated to moms who care for their sons with hemophilia A. It's an honest and visually striking journey about a mother going through the emotional whirlwind of raising a son with hemophilia A. This story is inspired by thousands of real moms and serves as a thank you for all that they do to make the hemophilia A caregiver community a place of love and resilience. Visit www.hemashort.com to watch the short film.
There's a big difference between being a role model and being a leader, and I'm still learning that difference. One difference? When you're a role model, people often hold you up as an example for others. Back when I played baseball, I was often a role model to the younger players. When I climbed the 7 summits, I became a role model to many people with bleeding disorders. But like we talked about last week, becoming a role model comes with its own set of challenges. How do you constantly live up to the role of providing model behavior for others? It can be draining to feel like you always have to live up to an ideal. This is why many role models often struggle with mental health problems. like depression and anxiety. This can also happen to people in leadership roles. But like I said, a role model and a leader are two different things. In 2019, I started my tenure as the executive director of Save One Life. To give you an idea of what that kind of job is like, I spoke with my friend and colleague, Amy Board. Like you've heard this season, Amy started life pursuing a career as an actor, then found her way to supporting the bleeding disorder community. Like me, she found her way into a leadership role. And like me, it all started with a love for giving back.
I loved y'all. Oh my God. I loved those kids. I loved the parents. I loved everything. And our little chapter in Colorado was struggling at that time, and there was a big transition, and a new executive director came in, and she had a nonprofit master's degree, and it was basically, I had no idea that that could be like a business, like that could be a job. And the whole business model is raising money for the cause and the people that you care about. And I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm totally in. I'm totally in. And decided to go back to school. I put myself through school. But I think the coolest thing about it was that I got to like accept and to learn, like, I'm not dumb. I can do this. I can critically think. And I can write, and I'm really good at it. And I got a lot of positive reinforcement at school. I crushed school. I think 3 months after I started was when our executive director at the Colorado chapter left unexpectedly, and Don Rodolini from NBDF courted me and said, I think we want you to do this. And that just it just completely changed my life and my trajectory and like what I thought of myself.
Yeah, so then you just stepped in from like running summer camps and going to school to running a chapter. How did that feel to step into like the critical role for the organization?
I wonder if you have felt this with Save One Life, if it was the same. First 2.5 years, 3 years felt great. I loved it. I felt really in control. I felt I was building something. I got funding for programming that I believed in. I felt that I was cultivating people. I completely rebuilt the board. I loved my staff. Victoria Hartman. We were just like two little peas in a pod, and I felt really good. And then I graduated school, and I think I was exhausted, and that's when I started to slip. And I always had trouble with staff because I don't think in all honesty, I had massive, unacknowledged, undiagnosed, and untreated anxiety that I had no idea. So it colored the whole thing. And so honestly, the last years that I was at the chapter were the hardest years. And I've never been able to tell them. It was never the people. Sometimes I think that they think it was my people, my board, my volunteers, those families. It was never them. It was never them. It was something bigger that I couldn't control. It was something deep within how I handle things that I lost control of.
Do you feel like it was more like you just lost the energy for it, or the drive that was kind of motivating you?
No, I think I had fairly severe mental health problems that were undiagnosed, and I didn't have the tools or the right guidance to learn how to manage that. And my triggers, my anxiety triggers, were really flared by that work in particular, because all of my anxiety, unfortunately, is interpersonal, all of it. And that job, as an executive director, all of it's interpersonal. I mean, you are playing the chessboard constantly and trying to make everyone feel like they are in a good space to do the work that you need them to do. And if they don't do that work that you need them to do, like, it is a emotional stress to be able to figure out how to do that, to do it yourself or something else. You're constantly dealing with personalities. You're dealing with volunteers. You're not paying them and you're asking them to do stuff. Constant. I also had too big of a vision for that particular job. If I would have been much more in my lane of what that chapter really was and what we were really good at, that's my only like wah-wah. I wanted to do stuff that was like, we don't need a lot of that stuff we don't need to do. And I wish I would have stayed in my lane a little bit more.
Do you think that came from, this was your first like executive director job? Do you think that had a lot to do with it? Like not really being able to assess what the organization needed and was capable of?
Yes.
Me too.
It is so hard.
It's funny you step into a role like that. And for me, I was so excited. It was something I was so passionate about. I was, on the board for so many years. I raised money for it. And I think you go into it with that excitement and that vision and all those amazing ideas. And then you're kind of hit by this reality of what it entails to actually make things happen in a nonprofit, especially a small nonprofit. And it's hard. And it's not because, people aren't working hard and doing great things, but there's just only so much you can do. And there's so much like behind the scenes stuff that is hard.
Yes. And you feel like a failure 100% of the time.
100% of the time. Yeah, you never feel like you're doing enough. You can hear from that interview that I definitely related to Amy's experience of feeling like I wasn't cut out for a leadership role. But it's one thing to feel that way and another to do something about it. And to do something about it, it helps to be able to define what kind of leader you are. To help answer that question, I talked with another leader I admire in the community, founder and CEO of Believe Limited, Patrick James Lynch.
I feel like I can speak to what it means to be the CEO of this company. But I was very aware of all the partners I would meet, oh, my friend John and his partner Damien, or these two, like, oh, the writing partners, production partners, business partners. I don't think any of those partnerships are still going, and I don't think they have been for a while, most of them. It was clear to me that my job is not to be a patriarchal, top-down kind of CEO, especially working with informed, smart, opinionated leaders who don't mind sharing honestly. My job was to be a bit more of a consensus builder and to see like, where does this ship and its unique composition, how does it best move through the water? Because it's not being a leader in isolation or in theory. I think that's an important thing too when we talk about leadership is it's one thing to talk about it as a theory. It's another thing to just look at your life and where in your life, in your home, at your job, in your school, in your community, wherever, where are you in one way or another already a leader? And what does that mean? And where else might you be able to apply some of that in your life? It's not an abstract thing. It's very tangible. It's very real. And it also doesn't have to be a big pronounced, you don't have to wear a cape. You don't have to make a, social media post about it. You can just be doing stuff.
So as a leader, you might be a consensus builder like Patrick, or you might be a problem solver, or you might be a negotiator. And while you're doing all that, you might also need to be a role model. I'm still learning what my leadership style is. One thing I do know is that I'm the sort of leader who's similar to what Patrick is describing. I also don't like the patriarchal top-down style of leadership. My team isn't just there to help me get the job done. I'm also there to help them get the job done. But another thing I know about myself is that I don't enjoy conflict. Unfortunately, sometimes conflict is unavoidable. It's one thing to know what kind of leader you are, but it's another thing to know what to do about it. Ignoring your own needs is a good way to make sure your needs go unmet. And unmet needs can often lead to mental health problems. Another of my guests, psychologist Dr. Ryan Warner, had a lot of great advice on that subject.
There's a lot of generational shifts to how we view mental health. The boomer group, maybe more seasoned individuals in the workplace, they historically have had a different view of like mental health compared to, the newer generation. So you've maybe heard of quiet quitting. That was a big deal the last couple of years to start to use that term. And now like the newer generation is saying, hey, I don't want to be like my grandparents and my parents, right? Working 12-hour days all day, every day. I'm sometimes just going to go to work to do the bare minimum to protect my mental health. And I'm going to take a mental health day, right? So I think this discussion about mental well-being and what it looks like, is shifting, I think, over time. But definitely there's a lot of cultural factors. And then we think about diversity factors. So looking at gender specifically, right? We think about like toxic masculinity. A man is supposed to be strong, is supposed to provide. They're not supposed to show weakness. And then you take that into the workplace. And maybe you feel that you can't vent and complain and cry when you feel sad. So there's a lot of factors that all come together that influence what we're talking about.
It's fascinating I feel like I was kind of in that, I'm a millennial, raised in that kind of mindset that you just have to work those 12-hour days and you got to kind of keep going and you got to do extra overnight. That's how you kind of show your worth. What are some suggestions for folks that just feel like they're overwhelmed and drowning kind of in tasks and work to make that time to reflect?
One thing I often suggest is at the top of each hour, how can you spend 3 minutes to take that mindful moment? It's only a moment that you need. Research shows that you only need average of 3 or 4 minutes every hour just to decompress and to ultimately boost your productivity over a long period of time. Sometimes we just put our heads down and just try to work for hours, but then we're exhausted at the end of the day. So what I personally do is that when it's 57 at the top of each hour, I ensure all my meetings are done by then. And I have 3 minutes to decompress, right? I'm not checking emails. I'm not doing anything. I'm just being mindful for 3 minutes. And if you're able to do that every single day throughout your workday, then you're going to then engage in some additional self-reflection. You're going to slightly boost your emotional intelligence a little further. And you're going to give yourself a little bit more of that harmony you need. instead of just putting your head down and working nonstop. So that's a simple strategy I think anybody can do to in turn create more mindful moments in their life.
I remember the first time I heard about mindfulness, I was like, I don't know how to do that. It seems impossible just to sit there and think. I saw it as like meditation, and I just was like, I don't know how to do that. That sounds too daunting. Like, do you have advice for people that are just kind of like getting going on that?
So mindfulness is simply being present in the moment. Oftentimes we're thinking about the future, all the things we have to do, or we're thinking about the past, all the things that we've already done. But very rarely are we actually being 100% present in the current moment. So one particular way to be present, right, is to bring all your attention to your breath, okay? So when you're breathing in, breathing out, just bring your attention to your breath. There's a lot of mindful meditation apps out there. You can go to YouTube as well. You can, find a 3-minute, 5-minute, breath meditation.
Focusing on your breath. I could do that. It's a mountain climbing technique. Step, step, breath. For more good advice on how to handle mental health issues like burnout or feeling hopeless, I turn to another of my guests, resilience expert Joanna Baquero. Were there ever times where keeping that hope alive was really difficult for you? And then how were you able to kind of work through any of those times, if you had any, that you felt hopeless?
I think when those times come, I want to go back to me. You need to be kind to yourself. You need to be kind to your needs in that moment and don't despair. And when I say be kind to yourself, truly do things that you like to do. If it's about going to get a manicure or go for a walk or do the things that you really enjoy. And when you do that, hope starts to grow back up because it's part of doing what you love and what you really enjoy opens yourself up again to possibilities. And so those are the things that I do is when I feel in despair is taking a break, right? You can't be also in this rush of go, 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 go. No, if you're not hopeful, go back to your center, go back to you and enjoy what you like to do. And then you'll find hope again.
It's true. Self-care is so important for your well-being, whether you're in a leadership role or not. And there are many ways I like to practice self-care. I love mountain biking with my dog, Oslo. I love watching movies and reading books. I love spending time with my wife, Jessica, and my son, Carter. That's right, Jess and I have a son. Carter arrived about a year after I climbed my stairs 1,000 times. He's the joy of our life. And he's one of the reasons why I decided to step away from my role as executive director of Save One Life in 2024, after 5.5 years on the job. Did I achieve the goal I wanted to accomplish? To make it possible for someone with hemophilia in Nepal to climb Mount Everest? Well, that's a lofty goal. The kind of goal that you can really only achieve by accomplishing many, many other goals first. And we did do that. At the beginning of this episode, I told you that we raised over $100,000 for my climbs. Here's what we did with some of that money during my time as executive director. We gave over 75 scholarships. For many people with bleeding disorders, medical care is so expensive that higher education can seem out of reach. With our scholarships, Save One Life recipients became doctors, nurses, truck drivers, engineers, computer scientists, and even mariners. We gave microgrants to help people start their own businesses. For example, we were able to help 2 parents in Kenya whose son has hemophilia purchase a motorbike, or bodaboda, so that they could start a taxi business, but also so they could drive to the clinic to get their son's medication. And we helped hundreds of people with hemophilia get access to critical, life-saving clotting factor. In the end, I'm proud of everything we accomplished at Save One Life. Even if we didn't quite accomplish everything we wanted to, I've always believed in setting big goals. This way, even if you don't accomplish everything, you still get a lot done. And you'll learn so much about yourself and others in the process. I also learned that I might not be suited for every kind of leadership role, and that's okay. I also learned that I still want to make the world a better place for people with hemophilia. I'm still finding new ways to do that. One way? By returning to what I know, mountain climbing. Next week, on the finale of the Final Summit, Season 4, I lead a group of climbers on an attempt to climb Mont Blanc, the tallest peak in the Alps. But I'm a much different person than I was when I climbed the 7 summits. Hopefully wiser, definitely older, and now, not just a husband, but a father.
The Final Summit is hosted by Chris Bombardier, written by Jim Rowley, edited by Greg Bernhard, produced by Keith Cordeluck, and graphic support from Tony Mendoza. The Final Summit is produced by Bloodstream Media. For more information or to start a podcast of your own, visit bloodstreammedia.com.